Hey YouTube, Alan here with another package and pickles video, and in a slightly cramped all the plushies have had to come away from the back. Chair's well away from the radiator now, getting cold, and now they're squeezing up beside me. Damn, it's getting tight here. But anyway, that's by the by. Today's video is actually going to be a little bit of a different package and pickles video because it's all going to be Sega Saturn stuff. I mean, okay, I've done a lot of Sega stuff before, but not so much Saturn, and I think only once before have I done a completely Sega Saturn video, and that was when I got a US system, which was a trade. So initially, I find that I've gotten into the Saturn in a very unusual way. I got a couple of games before I got the system, in trades from YouTubers actually, TTUK and Expo2708, and they were PAL games. You know, the common stuff, Sega Rally, Manx CT, that sort of things. But I had no system. When I got the system then, it turned out to be a US one. And it came with an action replay, so I was able to play, you know, the PAL games there anyway. But when I was over in the US, at the Classic Game Expo, I was able to pick up a couple of Japanese games. Virtua Fighter, the original, and then Shining Force 3. Now, of course, Shining Force 3 is an RPG, so, you know, can't really play it unless I learn Japanese. But Virtua Fighter, on the other hand, well, basically, there's not much, you know, text in it. There's nothing to really localize. In fact, the spine even is in English on this side, so it's perfect. The only thing I found was that the case was damaged when I got it, but it was like $2 or maybe even less. I can't remember. Go check my previous my Las Vegas pickup video and see if I'm right. So it was cheap, and I figured, you know what, this is just like a standard CD case, so I can go and replace it easily. And I have to say I found that really appealing, that these were quite nice, quite niche things to pick up, and you didn't have to worry about getting a proprietary box, or, you know, the condition. You're able to put your collection, or have a good conditioned collection with less effort, and I found that really appealing. So since then, I've been kind of doing a little research on Japanese Sega Saturn games, the ones that would be somewhat easy to play over here, either, you know, have, you know, English text options or have little text, that sort of thing. And I ended up picking up, making a list, and then out of that list picking up a few items off of eBay. Now, let's see. Go through them in some sort of order. So, yeah, I seem to be I've pretty much decided, you know what, for the Saturn, it pretty much makes sense to go Japanese. The games are plentiful. They're, you know, a lot of them are actually easy enough to find and reasonable prices. If you try and get the PAL versions with those crappy boxes, you're going to be worrying about condition all the time. You get a standard CD case, you don't like it, chuck it and get another one. You know, it's just so handy. So yeah, it seems to be the way to go. But anyway, on to the games. So first up this time, a classic on the system, and it is Saturn Bomberman. I think that is what it is, because this is, I think, the only one that both spines are in Japanese. In fact, this is the hardest one I found to get through the menus, but it's all complete in an excellent condition. It even has a spine card. Not that I'm particularly concerned about spine cards, but some people seem to like them. It certainly looks like a good game. I've only had a quick go at it, but as I said, the menus were a little troublesome to get around, but that's just menus. I'm sure once you figure out the menus, you'll be well sorted to play this game. At the back of the box actually has blurbs then. It has a battle game, a master game, and a normal game. So even on the boxes sometimes they have English blurbs. That was the first one up. I think that was probably also the most expensive. I think it was about a tenner. Second one up then is House of the Dead, spine in English there. Now, the interesting thing about this one is that all the cinemas and all the voice acting are actually in English. So, you know, it makes no difference really buying the Japanese version than the you know, Western release. Spine card again. It's not in as great condition, but the person I bought these off was very, very accurate. In fact, if anything, they undersold the condition. This one was marked as acceptable. I think there might have been a couple of scratches on the disc. Very, very minor, like won't show you because it won't come up on camera, but it's nice to see an eBay seller as well that is honest and detailed about their items. And I have noticed that a lot of the Saturn sellers do seem to give a bit more detailing, which is nice. In fact, if anything, this was probably the worst one because there's a chip out of the corner and it's so minor, like you wouldn't even be bothered about it. But I think House of the Dead was a fiver. Now, of course, that's for the Saturn light gun. I don't have a light gun. You can use the controller, but let's be honest, this type of game, you really do need to pick up a light gun. So, or a virtual gun, I think they call it on the Saturn. I'll have to pick up one of those down the line. But there's plenty of good light gun games, the Virtual Cop series, of course, on the Saturn. So that's in the works. That's not in the works, actually. I have no plans for it just yet, but I'm sure I'll pick one up. Next up then is Wily Wombat. What a amusing name, if you ask me. Again, English spine. And this is another unusual example of complete again, but no spine card. I think this is about £7. This is just like House of the Dead. It's pretty much all in English. There's cinemas that have English. They have English voices and then a Japanese subtitle, and it's like, well, that's fine with me. I can live with that all day long. So this was an interesting one because it's published by Hudson, but the developer, and I don't see it marked. No, I don't see it on the disc or in the back of the box anywhere. But the developer is actually Westone Studios, or West One, or however you pronounce that, i.e. the people who make the Wonder Boy series. So I was very anxious to try this out, because after the kind of the Mega Drive or Monster World 4, you don't really hear too much from them. They did a few bits, nothing that was as stand out as, shall we say, their earlier work. But I wanted to give it a shot. I've only had a quick go at it, but it seems pretty decent. Actually, I noticed I picked up a couple of Hudson games there. So yeah, that was another one that if you're looking for an English friendly title, definitely English friendly, I'd say. And then finally, and this one I picked up again on the same remit, English friendly, a Notion. Like, these are all Saturn exclusives pretty much. You've Saturn Bomberman, considered a classic, House of the Dead. I mean, it's hilarious though. Those games are just brilliant, especially for a fiver. And Wily Wombat, it's another system exclusive, so why not? And this last one is a system exclusive, and it's apparently quite unusual, and that is Mr. Bones. And it's even at the back of the box, instead of having your typical back, it has like a stage listing, a song directory, like it's an album that you're buying. Although it is actually like a 2-disc game, so it's double disc. Actually, this one might have been a tenner as well. I can't quite remember. But it's double discer, very nice condition. In fact, it's in perfect condition. I don't know that these double ones come with a spine card or not. As I said, it doesn't bother me if it does or doesn't. But this game, it did get a Western release, but it seems to be very hard to pick up the PAL or the American version. And yet the Japanese one, you wouldn't spend more than 20 quid in it. That would be a high end. So like, I did a bit of checking around, and it seemed to be about a tenner. So I said, fair enough. It's definitely something that's unusual and worth a shot, if nothing else. And it was great not to be able to, or not to spend the money that the PAL version goes for. There are apparently 1 or 2 levels that are a little tricky with the Japanese translation, but other than that, it's basically totally English friendly as well. So I'll be interested to try that one out. Very unusual. I've seen people rave about it, consider it one of their best games. We'll see. But there we go. That's a beefed up the Japanese Sega Saturn collection a bit. So now I've got 6 Japanese Sega Saturn games, and only 3 PAL ones. And despite having a US system, 0 US games. That doesn't seem right at all. But that's just the way it went. So that was actually my first kind of investment, shall we say, into the Saturn, because the other bits I got in trades. So that was the first, or $2 or whatever in America. I'm kind of kicking myself now. When I was over in the convention, they had a few other Saturn games, Japanese Saturn games, and they were all kind of a couple of dollars. I should have probably picked them up too. I was a bit unsure that some of them might be, I did not recognise them from the box. Like, I recognised Virtual Fighter and Shining Force English titles, but I didn't recognise the other ones, so I wasn't too sure if I'd be able to play them, so I kind of left them. But at $2 probably would have been worth a shot. Anyway, that's just here nor there, as I say. So that's it. Thanks as always for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'd like to pick up some more Saturn stuff, but I'll probably have to wait a little while before we kind of delve into the Saturn again. But it's something I do want to try out a bit more. It's a fairly underrated system too, if you ask me. It's a really nice looking piece of equipment, and if you actually look at the library, it's not a massive library, but there's actually quite a lot of decent games on it, or reasonably rated. So it's actually not as people often say it's one of those failed systems. I think that's been harsh on it, to be honest. Anyway, I seem to be ending the video, and then I went into another thing. We'll end this time. So until next time.